I mean, I think 10 and 10.
Okay.
Um,
That's fine.
Yeah.
We can go over this. I mean, I wasn't sure how much time you were gonna want, so I figured Q&A. Obviously, if it's Q&A, we go through the whole.
Yeah, because I can talk about sort of both, the sort of framework for thinking about AI and like pedagogically, broader, holistically, and then I'll get into specific. Or, because the truth is, the way that we've been using AI on this campus right now is that we're all just trying to kind of take this out.
Like the rest of the world.
Like the rest of the world.
So I was just informed that Pride Parade starts at 11. So
Yeah.
Pride Parade.
So I heard last night.
Oh, no.
So there's going to be transport. They want it to be announced that there will be transport immediately following the presentation. It has to end at 11, and that lunch will be extended so that those going to the Pride Parade will be able to make it back.
Okay. 11, not 10. In my head, I thought you meant 10, and I was like, but I just put it down here. It's just really not even.
Oh, yeah, originally I thought 12, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
All right, so we'll keep it in, keep it to one.
yeah. So you got. So it's only more than you, or just you?
Sophie Goodman, us three.
Oh, you three. Okay, cool. So you know the setup. You got one live mic, the director. Those two wireless are live.
Okay.
They're all checked. They all have new batteries. So
Okay.
That's all.
it's nice. Okay, cool. And do you want me? Is it okay if I leave that up, or do you want to have a black screen?
It'll look good for the big broadcast, so people want it on YouTube.
I actually, that's great. I like to have have stuff to work with.
After the introduction, after the meeting off, would you like to sit, all three of us, and we can kind of be conversationally? I mean, I can stand up for them and say something.
And the thing, we might
Wherever
be,
you're more comfortable.
if you,
Just let them
let
know.
me just check something. We
Is
might
the
be able
podium better mic?
we might be able to bring that mic over as a wired mic.
Oh, because we have two mics, got it. We can, we'll just stay at the podium, that's fine.
You sure?
I doubt we're gonna,
Super
during
easy.
Q&A,
I'm probably gonna do the podium, so.
Okay. Because yeah, this is, if you did want to remove it, this has a little,
pops right off.
pops right off and
XLR.
take it over and there should be enough for you to sit down if you need to. So that just, again, that just pulls backwards and lifts out.
Morning, Albert. You better straighten up.
No, never. Can't make me.
No, I've known you too long, I know that. Hey,
How are you?
I'm good, Brooke.
Good to see you.
Yes, I have a question I have to ask you.
Yes, please.
No, you stay sitting.
Oh, it's good to see you.
See you too, and congratulations on all your,
All the next level.
yes, really. Pretty exciting.
It is actually. It's terrifying and exciting.
Yeah, well, welcome back to Antioch, right?
Never left.
Never left. And that's what I want to chat with you about. On the list, staff directory list, it doesn't have your graduation date.
I never graduated.
I don't think that matters.
I think I would have been since 2001.
I think,
The alumni group has never been in the, I've never been in the,
Yeah.
I've never been in the right place. So I graduated high school in 97 and I transferred in 99. So I think that puts me in basically with my class.
well, the reason I ask is that I personally feel it's very important that when people are listed, that the Antioch Convention deal, so that people know.
Wait, you're saying my staff, my faculty page? My bio
No,
page?
the staff,
A little bit more like that, yeah.
Staff directory.
yeah. It might be Shannon now. I've asked
In the alumni,
Okay,
the alumni website.
Yeah. no, when you go online and you scroll down, except now it's not there, but I'm sure it's coming back up. It says staff directory, and that's just everybody who's employed. And some folks, like, Shelby has her year. I mean, not her year, but it's like 02, 05 is when we graduated.
Yeah, so I withdrew and then I stayed out of school for a lot of years and then I have a family.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what the program is.
Well, my definition of being an Ethiopian, you were on Antioch Filmakers for like a month
Well, like,
Or
I
more.
definitely need that.
or a term. I think that calculation varies, but I didn't graduate from Antioch, and I'm the class of '80.
Okay, perfect. I
So,
was told that the alumni affairs office counts like your third year.
Okay.
Your technically, which I need that, but.
yeah. So, we were one of like 6 people that, from last time I checked, didn't have a graduation or a date of possible graduation. And that's, I've asked this question, we don't want to know how many
And
times.
it's in the staff directory. of
Staff
the
directory.
main college building.
Yes,
Okay, I will look into that and find it and, make it.
yeah, because when I was in the president's office, and I was in charge of directory, monumental pain to do that. I made sure that everybody, I took it upon myself to say, you're an Antiochian and this is the year, or you tell me the year. 20% for all the years that I did this were, at least 20% were somehow affiliated with the, as a student. And I don't know how many other educational institutions have that kind of a percentage, but I suspect it's fairly high. And to me, I think it's important for someone who goes on the page and if they go to the staff director, say, oh, that person, that person. Gives us a little more weight or continuity or validity or whatever entity word you want to use. So, fabulous.
I will figure that out and make it so, because I can agree system.
Plus, it's a good selling point. You're going to be taught and supported by folks that had not the same experience, but a similar experience.
Right.
And so that you may want to talk to your housekeeper about something that's troubling you that you can't share with your person. You know?
Yes.
I know that's true.
These small worlds we live in.
Absolutely. And I can't remember your date from last reunion. Welcome back. Here's my buddy. How was the evening? Did you go to the movies?
I did.
Tell me. Roll your socks out, kind of thing?
Some of them did.
Yeah. Oh, good, okay.
I work here. I work here. I know, but to me, this part that I was saying, you had surgery,
And then you were
good some,
You don't have to drive.
Yes. I wasn't awake.
Two guys came up, multiple players from Antioch,
All right. Grab a seat and we'll get started. So my name is David Southern, class of 73. I want to welcome you to our first panel today on AI today and in the future. We could obviously spend an entire weekend talking about that topic. So we're going to narrow our focus today and cover two subjects, I think. The first being what's happening at the college with AI today. And I have here Brooke Blackman-Breyer, who's the Associate Professor of Writing and Aesthetics, the Program Director of Writing, and Managing Director of the Antioch Review and the Antioch Writers Workshop, which is taking place next month. And I'm thrilled to have her here to talk about what's happening with AI on campus today. I want to make a couple announcements because I'll otherwise forget them. The parade is scheduled from 11 to 12, which makes it immediately after this panel. There will be transportation out front that will take you to the parade. Lunch will be extended, so you don't have to worry about trying to grab your lunch before you go to the parade. And I've also been instructed to tell you that the C Shop, where you can buy all your swag, will be open from, I think it was 10:30 to 3:30. That's at the library. And with that, let me turn the program over to Brooke, and she can tell us what's happening at the college today.
Thank you, David. Can you hear me okay? Is this too loud? Good. I might not be able to really truly explain what's happening at the college broadly, but I do teach first year writing, and I can talk about the ways in which we are grappling with AI pedagogically, what we think it is doing, what we think it offers, how we imagine students may be using it soon, and how we as faculty think that we should probably develop some facility or some deeper understanding about what AI is and what it can do. So I will talk a little bit pedagogically about how we are attempting individually to learn tools, but also framing for students how these tools might be best used in their 4-year period of study at Antioch. My general perspective on this is that the tools are here. They are not going anywhere, just like the calculator. I believe that we, writing and thinking, will survive them. But I do also feel a certain amount of responsibility to teach their appropriate use. So we can talk about that a little around writing. And then also, I taught a course in winter of this past year, so our last main term that started in January. And it was a first year writing experience, and I gave students a theme. One of our students from that class, who's actually here for the summer, may join us in a few. Her name is Sophie Goodman. So if you see her walk in, we'll give her a small applause. She's in the sciences. Basically, that writing course asked each student to do their research project around some particular form of AI. And so that's where I will begin right here. The very first thing that you have to do when you want to talk about artificial intelligence is to disambiguate the term, right? We say this word and it means everything and nothing. And so in this class, that was the very first thing that we set out to do as researchers who were there to go through the process of researching, writing, developing an annotated bibliography, and then finally a final paper. So this is your standard classic English composition first year writing course. We took AI as the overall theme, and each student, once we read some shared course readings, each student had to choose their own thematic, particular topic of inquiry that would guide them through the research part of the course. So hopefully Sophie will join. She is an environmental scientist who explored how artificial intelligence is aiding the scientific community in terms of a lot in terms of data management. So in that class, broadly, we had a lot of students interested in surveillance technologies. We, a cluster of about 5 or 7 students worked together in a small group where they explored the ways in which surveillance technologies are becoming not only just prevalent, but also insidious in different aspects of life that we might not really understand or be thoughtful about yet. A number of students worked in a cluster to explore social media and algorithms that are framing what we see every time we turn on our computers. So trying to better understand the ways in which we're all kind of living in echo chambers, right? When you log into your Facebook, you don't see the same things as I do when I log into my Facebook. And it's not only just because we have a different set of friends who are posting, it's because advertising, you have been typed, right? Advertising has become very specific as to the kind of person you are and the kinds of ads that you might be inclined to click on. A lot of students in the sciences were relatively tech positive. They were looking at the ways in which different kinds of big data algorithms and limited AI might allow us to get through scientific advances through the data much more quickly than human, non-assisted means. We had some students looking into biomimicry, one student in particular into biomimicry and how, for instance, like, what do you call it? Slime molds, is that the right word? Slime molds are teaching us things that we might want to build into our algorithms. So in general, it was a really exciting class. Students at the beginning of the course pushed back really strongly about there being a general guiding theme to the course at all. At the very beginning of the course, everyone said, AI, we don't care about AI. And I was like, okay, just humor me. Part of having a theme for a class is a certain amount of pedagogical quality control. If you're bringing 15 students through the research process, and if every student must actually choose their own topic, if they choose their topic in 15 different, complete disparate places, it becomes really hard as an instructor to lead each one through that research process. And so that's why I chose AI. But really, the reason I chose AI is because part of my role here in coordinating the activities of the writing program across the college, so thinking about what is a quality writing program today for a small liberal arts school, which also involves running the placement process and the student orientation process. So this past fall, when we did student orientation, one of my roles is to talk about plagiarism and academic honesty. And how can you talk about academic honesty and academic dishonesty in this world without introducing the idea that, yes, we are aware that there are tools that can do things for you. Yes, we think that perhaps you might want to find ways to use these tools. Know that your faculty understand that these tools are in play, that if you produce something that a tool wrote for you, that we probably will smell it, and that there might be appropriate ways of using these tools. So I thought that I would be a little bit clever in this last orientation session. It didn't go off perfectly, I would say, but I think I can refine it each year. What I did was prior to orientation, I actually created my first ChatGPT account. So this is how much of a non-expert in AI I am. And I asked ChatGPT some questions. And at the time, I had an oral history institute that I hosted here on campus last winter. So oral history was on my mind. Last summer, not winter, last summer. And so I thought, okay, ChatGPT, generate an oral history syllabus for me. And immediately it wrote what I considered to be my syllabus, like word for word, the introduction to the syllabus. I thought, but I've already written this. And the truth is I had myself and probably 30 other colleagues that have syllabi online in a relatively small community of practice in an academic world. We have syllabi online at ResearchGate and academia.edu and on our private sites, our blogs, our teaching sites. And so when I read that, I thought, well, this is basically me and my 29 other colleagues just merging our words. I do feel as though I wrote this syllabus. And then I thought, well, let's see how far I can push ChatGPT until it fails. So then I said, if you've ever done ChatGPT, you log in, you create an account, and you basically ask a question. But once it gives you a result, you can ask it further questions to refine the response that it gives to you. So at this point, I have a very basic oral history syllabus. Now I say, make it an 11-week syllabus. Then I say, make it a syllabus with readings, each for 11 weeks. Then I said, make it an 11-week syllabus with audio from archives to listen to. And it did. It pulled in an archive from major institutions, repositories. It started to fail around here because the things that it wanted to link me to in terms of repositories were not perfectly connected to the theme of the week. And so I thought, okay, I'm getting to the edge of what is possible. But it was scary. It left me with a little bit of a feeling of concern that it had written my syllabus for me in basically the exact same way that I would have and have written my syllabus. So I thought I would, test and see what else it could do. My other academic area of practice is philosophical aesthetics. It gets pretty weird pretty quickly in continental philosophy, thinking about the philosophy of experience and the philosophy of art. And so I thought, okay, ChatGPT could not keep up from the word go. It could not create a solid introductory statement for a syllabus on philosophical aesthetics in the continental tradition. I queried it. This did leave me with some sense of, pride and humanity or something like that. So I played with it and it didn't get better. And I thought, okay, so there are certain things that are easily accessible that exist, that are coming from knowledge banks that this tool has been trained in. And then there are other things that exist in knowledge banks that this tool does not currently have facility in, right? That's basically what I understood to be happening. So I thought I would be clever at orientation and that I would have our students understand that ChatGPT, because at this point in time, I felt very plagiarized. Let me just go back to the oral history. I did, in fact, feel as though ChatGPT had plagiarized my syllabus, almost like phrases that I felt as though they were my phrases. So at student orientation, our whole freshman class, I asked them what they thought academic dishonesty was. We read through the honor code of Antioch College, which I believe is right here on the wall. Shall we recite it? I can't see it, and I would like to think I remember it, but I don't. Anyone want to read it for me?
Antioch College is a community dedicated to the search for truth.
Search for truth, a community dedicated for the search for truth.
There we go. All right. Antioch College is a community dedicated to the search for truth, the development of individual potential, and the pursuit of social justice. In order to fulfill our objectives, freedom must be matched by responsibility. As a member of the Antioch College community, I affirm that I will be honest and respectful in all my relationships, and I will advance these standards of behavior in others. Thank you.
So that is the place from where we begin. And at this time, talking through academic dishonesty off of stemming from the Antioch Honor Code, I thought that we would ask ChatGPT to describe for us what academic honesty is. And it gave us a really fine description. And then I asked ChatGPT in that conversational format that it does wish for you to engage, what plagiarism was specifically. And it gave me a very good definition of what plagiarism was. And everyone, all of the freshmen, incoming freshmen here, the first year of Antioch College students that just finished their first year, they all agree that that was a good definition of plagiarism. Then I asked ChatGPT if it plagiarized. Now, I know that AI is not human-like in its capacities yet, but you should have seen the tool dance. The response was that it is trained off of certain data sets and is therefore incapable, essentially, of plagiarism. It simply is curatorial in its function. You can play with ChatGPT yourself, and I encourage you, if you've never used the tool, it's free. There are upgraded levels that you can purchase. You don't need to get a feel for the tool and what it can do. You can just go to ChatGPT. This is the Google-based. You can create a login with whatever email account you want, and you can start to play with the tool. In its essence, it's basically a next level search tool, right? But at this time in the orientation, when Google or when ChatGPT started to sort of dance around the question of whether or not it plagiarizes, there popped a number of hands up in the room. And suddenly I found myself in more conversation than I've ever found myself in freshman orientation, which is usually, pretty passive on the part of the students and pretty active on the part of the stacked people who are here to be sure that we, help them encounter a certain amount of information and orientation. So suddenly a lot of people had something to say. So I thought for first year writing, AI would be a great theme to organize our class because clearly there were interest and opinions in the room. I did get pushback, as I mentioned, when we started the class. But basically we started the class with, when I'm up in the Antioch Review offices, which I'd love to talk with anybody here later this week, or feel free to email me. One of the things that I get is journals in the mail all the time. And there's this one journal that came to me last summer called Etc., ETC. And it had a really great article on AI and ChatGPT in particular that gave kind of an overview. So we used this article as our guiding first sort of shared reading to open up the class. And this is where we started disambiguating the term artificial intelligence. It's my opinion we probably should stop using that term almost in general unless it's qualified by what type of technologies we're actually speaking of. So this article says that there are reactive machines. There are machines that have no memory, no learning. They simply are already trained on a given data set. They're almost doing if-then calculations within a given data set. They're not thinking, they're not learning. This would include the tool that won in 1997 that beat the Grand Master in the chess game. So it's not a learning tool. It's simply a tool that already has a given set of possibilities and it navigates that through, I'm not a programmer, but what I understand to be kind of an if-then sort of flowchart system. So not learning. There are also what are called limited memory machines. So this is another category of AI operating right now that we're actually probably interacting with more than we know. So this is where data is stored, but no new knowledge is produced within these systems. This includes chatbots, autonomous vehicles. We get into theoretical realms really quickly. So when we think about theory of mind machines, this, again, disambiguating the term as this first core reading for this writing course, we have to break what is actually happening and what the tools are capable of apart from the theoretical and what we imagine AI might be doing, but probably isn't actually doing at this time. So theory of mind machines are purely theoretical. This is the idea that, that an AI bot or set of tools or technologies can demonstrate purpose or intention. This is a quote from the reading. Purpose or intention, as well as knowledge, belief, thinking, doubt, guessing, pretending, liking, and so forth. So this is purely theoretical in the world of AI. So when we have conversations about AI, what we have to recognize first is that we're mostly talking about what is called artificial limited intelligence. So programmed algorithms, right, that can give a specific output from within a given data set. This includes the limited memory and the reactive machines that we mentioned. Another type of theoretical next level terminology that we tend to think of when we say AI has to do with artificial general intelligence, and then from there, artificial super intelligence. None of these things are actually happening right now in the world of connected tools that we interact with. Artificial general intelligence would be human-like in that way of thinking, processing, guessing. Artificial super intelligence is the next level idea that the humanoid robot may, become cognizant beyond its own, beyond our own consciousness and begin to take over. We're not doing it justice there, of course. But the first part of this course was really to disambiguate the term and then to ask students to find very specific technologies to research and to explore. Again, surveillance was big, social media, the ways that the internet is preformed for us as individual users, the ways that our data is being brought into these algorithms, data sets, surveillance technologies. We had 2 students research autonomous cars that were very, very interested in the, the overarching possibilities there. One took an abilities lens, which was they kind of flipped the script a little bit, which was really interesting, talking about if you're able to drive a car and something takes that agency away from you because it's already pre-built into the software of the car system that you've purchased. Keep in mind, we don't actually own cars anymore. According to a court ruling from GMC, we actually own software packages that are usable for us, that come with hardware for the foreseeable life of the software package. That's actually what a car is these days. So if Sophie were here, I would pass the torch to Sophie because she has a really great paper on environmental sciences. But I think instead, I'll just kind of wrap up here. If she does come, we'll bring her into the panel. But in general, pedagogically, I think in higher ed today, especially in liberal arts colleges where we have one-on-one direct contact with our students, our classes are small, our advisees are known to us, we have relationships that we develop and sustain over 4 years. AI is here and it's here to stay. And the ways in which this course got through the annotated bibliography process and the research process, towards the end of the class, we used, it was actually Sophie that found, that's why I wish she was here. Actually it wasn't, it was in Sophie's group, but it was a different student, apologies. One of the students started using a paper that had used ChatGPT in the research of the paper. So ChatGPT was cited within the science paper. This was, her paper was around human trafficking and kind of complex to get into here, but the actual peer-reviewed published journal article that she was citing used ChatGPT repeatedly throughout. It quoted ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was appropriately cited in the works cited list, which was a really important example for us to use because students got to understand that yes, these tools are here. You can ask questions of them, sometimes advanced and higher level questions. If you get in with ChatGPT, it gives you a different kind of search result. It does become conversational and can help your thinking advance to the next level. So the general thinking in this class, where I hope that we ended and where I hope that students are who went through this course with me, is that ChatGPT and other tools like it, this artificial narrow intelligence and the tools that it is making available to us as readers, as writers, as thinkers, we can and should start using these tools, but we have to understand that they are thought partners. We can't give them the autonomy and the agency of creating our writing for us, but they can, in conversational format, help us take our thinking faster and further than we might be able to on our own, and that there are appropriate ways of citing the material that ChatGPT gives us. And in fact, if you are a researcher or a thinker producing knowledge today, if you're using ChatGPT to advance your thinking, you should be citing it because it is a research partner at that point in time. So that this class organically found some articles that had used ChatGPT and had appropriately cited them, in our case, in MLA, Modern Language Association format, was kind of a boon that just came naturally, but I think we're going to see more and more of that. So I am of the mind as a writing teacher that, people still do math. People even still do mental math after the calculator. And so the possibility of thinking and writing is still present for us. But it seems to me as faculty and as people who care about thinking and writing, we have to become aware of what these tools can do and start to build some muscle memory in the tools ourselves, which will help us if someone does plagiarize with the tool, but might also help us with a higher level of, higher order thinking and questioning, at least more quickly than we might be able to do on our own. So that's our introduction. I think I'll give it back to David. We hope for some conversation.
Thank you very much. As an alumni, it's hard sometimes to know what's going on campus, so it's really nice to get a view from the ground floor, if you will. And I hadn't given any thought to the idea of citing ChatGPT as a reference, which I think might be tricky because I suspect that if I ask the same questions, I might get a different answer. So it's an interesting thought. Okay, so I want to I'll take about 10 or 15 minutes and answer 3 questions. The first being, why is AI seem ubiquitous now? I mean, it feels to me like in the last 2 years, it has just jumped out on to the public forum, between Congress and boardrooms. It's AI everybody's talking about AI. Second question is, how do we educate students for a work world that includes AI? And the third question is, why do I think Antioch education is uniquely qualified to prepare students for that kind of a world? So let's start for the first question. Why is AI seeming, ubiquitous now? And clearly, microchips have increased in capacity, continuously over the last, decades, actually. We now have large databases stored out on the cloud, so they're accessible to train these models on. But I think the most important part, and why it seems like in these last 2 years, it's become a talk of the town, is because of the development of the large language models that you can access with human language now. Between that and generative AI, where you can ask questions and get it to draw pictures for you and what have you, I think it's entered the public consciousness because now it's sort of democratized the interfaces with computers, that everybody has a chance to talk to the computer in your language. And one computer technologist I saw that was quoted, he said, the need to learn computer languages is diminishing because computers are learning to speak our language. So just after all that discussion about ChatGPT, how many people here have actually used ChatGPT? Well, that's virtually everybody, so that's cool. So I presume you have a sense of sort of the limitations that you have as well as the capabilities. And write me a 1-paragraph biography of David Southern. If I'm a human and I want to do that, what do? I would go to LinkedIn, right? And pull a bio there. ChatGPT, at least the version I used, obviously hasn't used LinkedIn and doesn't know how to access LinkedIn, and gave me a paragraph that related to another question I had asked about, find me the best book title for this particular book. So I'm an expert on stuff that I'm not really an expert on, but be that as it may. So I think the computer interfaces have sort of been democratized. And I think that's why all of a sudden it seems accessible to the rest of us and why everybody's talking about it. So how do we educate students for this world? Is it that computers are going to replace us and they'll be doing all the work and we'll just be doing whatever we do in our leisure time? Will we use computers to make our jobs better and get rid of all the routine stuff and just do the interesting creative stuff? Well, predictions on that are all over the map at this point. It'll be quite a while, I think, before the answers get out there. Clearly, some jobs are in more danger than other jobs. I mean, I think of Uber drivers and I think about the self-driving cars. And from San Francisco, I can tell you, I see self-driving cars now in the streets. And it's kind of fun because the tourists, they see a car with no driver come up to the corner and they all kind of like, what? But it's coming. And clearly there are some jobs that will be more affected. But I think to answer the question of how we educate students for this world, I think it's good to take a step back and realize that AI is actually just one part of 2 major trends that are affecting the work world today. The first one is the acceleration of scientific and technological progress and advance. It's happening at a rapid rate in many different fields. And I think one way to just get a gauge of how fast things are happening is if you look at patent filings over the last 50 years, what you see is the number of filings is happening, increasing at a logarithmic rate. It's not arithmetic, it's logarithmic. And there's no way that any one person is going to be able to keep track of what's happening. So that rapid amount of change creates a workplace that needs different skills in the people that are there. The second major trend that I see is the fact that with the reach of the internet, the fact that smartphones are proliferating everywhere, and that you have social networks, information is disseminated almost instantaneously. So you have a world that not only is changing rapidly, but the availability of information about what's happening is also changing. Business strategists describe this world with an acronym called VUCA, which stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And the implications of that world is that knowledge, current knowledge, has a shorter and shorter half-life as new discoveries happen. So it's no longer possible to be successful by learning something and then going off into the work world and not learning more stuff. The idea of separating life into a learning module followed by an earning module, it's obsolete. Lifelong learning has to become a strategy for people entering the work world today. One needs to develop an attitude of not only accepting, but embracing change and not resisting it. If you have an attitude of resisting change, you're going to get left behind. You're in trouble. Embracing change means being open to experimentation, taking risks, risking failure, but being able to get up and do the next experiment. Something that's shown in Facebook's model of move fast and break things. So futurists suggest, as you look at the work world, that you divide jobs into tasks that are computer suited and that are human suited. On the computer side, you have, at this point, routine tasks, repetitive tasks, and pattern recognition. So even some of the jobs like radiologists, reading screens, is a pattern recognition kind of skill. And so that's one of the places AI is moving into. So if we think of what humans are good at, they're good at communication and collaboration, analytical reasoning and critical thinking, and creativity. Now, I think a good liberal arts education should provide those skills. Communication and collaboration you get from study groups, you get it from class discussions. Analytical reasoning, critical thinking, well, that's the whole idea of a liberal arts education, is to teach you to take positions, defend them, find weaknesses in other people's discussions, arguments. Creativity you find pretty much across the board, not just in the creative arts, but in science, scientific discovery, new ways of looking at history, language, literature. All these are skills that should come from a basic liberal arts education. Now, most of you are old enough to remember Paul Harvey on the radio, who used to give you that, some little teaser line, and then they'd break for the commercial, and then you come back and say, and now for the rest of the story. So the third question was, why do I think an Antioch education is the paradigm for preparing students for this new work world? And I think the answer comes down to one word, co-op, but not necessarily in the way you think about it. So if you think back on your co-op experience, we would leave campus, we'd get plucked down in some who knows where. You'd have 3 months to figure out, A, where to live, figure out who you were working with and how to work with them. You learn some new tasks, hopefully, well, but maybe not. And you left and came back to college, and then you rinse, repeat, go through it again. So what does that teach you? Well, for one, it teaches you communication and collaboration because you're dealing with different people in different environments over different times, which is a lot different than I think a typical college student's experience interacting with their peers, right? Much different. It teaches you agility. You learn to adapt. You learn to pick things up fast and to move on. And I don't know about your experience, but for me, my first year out of Antioch, every 3 months, I had this sudden kind of feeling like I should be doing something or going somewhere. It was innate, right? You learn the pattern. And I think you learn resilience because we had enough jobs. Some of them you found you were good at. Some of them you found you maybe weren't so good at. I know some people, they wanted you to leave. But the point of that is you learn that you're not the failure. You learn that it's maybe just a bad combination of situation and person. And so you go on to the next job and you know, try and do it. And I think that's hugely important. And then the integration of study and work. I mean, there's no better example of integrating study and work than what you find here with the co-op program. And Antioch has a history as a college of change, and I think we're used to change. It's kind of in our DNA at this point. So returning to AI specifically, really, the large language models like ChatGPT and generative AI are basically a toolbox of statistical models. Unlike the old computer programs where you could write the code and you could go into them and understand the code, and if you wanted to change something, you could, they're black boxes. They do their own calculations and people don't necessarily know what's actually happening for those calculations. But like any tool, its value comes in learning how to use it, practicing with it, getting better at it, and learning where its limitations are. And I think Brooke mentioned some of the limitations for her interactions with ChatGPT. So my advice is learn the specific models for your area, because there will be different models for different areas with different purposes. Understand the inputs and the outputs. What questions are being asked, how to ask the right questions. Is the output that you're getting the output you think you should be getting, and be critical of what that output is, because we know, for example, at this point, there's lots of bias in the databases. And are you getting the answers to the questions that you need? Critical thinking that you learn in a liberal arts education, I think, is really important to that. The work world students are entering today is vastly different from the one that we entered when we were graduating. Pace of change is fast and accelerating. Facts are instantaneously available and at our fingertips, and not always on ChatGPT. And lifelong learning is a skill that the development of is really necessary. So given that kind of a world, I can't think of another institution that's better prepared to produce students to put out into this world than Antioch is. So I think we have about 20 minutes. We can open the floor for questions, comments, experiences with ChatGPT. So wait for a mic. We gotta rope a mic here. And I will try and start sort of on one side of the room, and then I'll pop over to the other side of the room.
Great. I really thought how you described your class and the parameters that you chosen, I think is really absolutely fantastic, because that was an educational experience for me to see how you break it out what AI is. And that's a real great place to start. For someone who has been doing ChatGPT and then moved on to Grammarly, because I've been writing my memoir, and what is fabulous is with ChatGPT, I've been writing my memoir with scratch notes for about a decade, and I said, damn, this is going to be a drag to make it grammatically correct, etc. And the magic that I saw with ChatGPT was so fantastic. I'm so excited. I couldn't believe it. Meaning that I had a couple of scratch notes, paragraphs of without the semicolons, without without using the word almost, without using of, etc. When I saw it filled in almost, when I saw it filled in, that I couldn't believe I could read my scratch notes as it had no mistakes. That was a shock. So I saw the limit of ChatGPT. Then I moved on to Grammarly, which is more closer to the writing principle and add much more flavor to it and give me more design capabilities, such as being more effective in your writing, being more affirmative in your writing. So we can take your text and add more affirmative, make you more genteel, et cetera. So it has all these emotional places you can connect to your text, which I think is an absolute fantastic tool. So I'm totally excited about getting away from struggling with grammar. To me, is the gigantic leap forward.
Tell us who you are, please.
I'm Dennis Warren. I went here, started in September 1970, left at the end of the strike in June 1973. You're welcome.
I remember that year. Erna, yeah.
So this is a question for Brooke. I'm Erna Gellis, class of 74. We went to a panel on AI recently, and one of the points that was made by somebody, I don't know if he's from Intel or where they were from, was that a limit of Chat GPT is that it has to answer. Okay, so our son, who finished his PhD recently, was playing with it early on from our perspective, and he asked for a list of references in a particular area, and then he checked it, and a lot of them were made up. So when you cite Chat GPT, what do you do under those circumstances, I guess?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, what we're talking about is information literacy, right? And that is one of the most fundamental soft skills that the liberal arts is supposed to help students develop. So we think about critical thinking, we think about, so information literacy in this context is really important. And I think the only way to build that muscle memory is just to log into the tools, to use the tools, to figure out where the tools are successful in helping your thinking move forward and where the tools will absolutely leave you flat on your face. For me, I think thinking of it as a tool that has to answer is correct. Like something has to be generated in response to your query, right? At times, I have seen ChatGPT provide a limited response, like acknowledge that it's a limited response. I think for me, the ways that these limited memory machines, these technologies are being integrated into everything is a little bit more insidious than we think. Even just in the past 2 months to 2 weeks, my phone, when I go to search Google on my phone, the first Google hit for some years, I think you probably have experienced this the same as I do. When you run a Google search, the first maybe 3 hits are sponsored content, advertised paid content, right? This is rising to the top of the search because it's paid content. Then you get to your first real searches. Now, and I mean very recently, within the last handful of weeks, you're getting an AI synthesis, then your sponsored paid listing content, then your results based upon chatbots and the algorithms that they develop from crawling sites. I think that those summaries that I've seen on my Google searches and also even just in Facebook, they have been very problematic. So we're seeing technologies that are flawed, deployed in various places. Now, if you're on Facebook and you want to find one of your friends or colleagues, if you search their name, you're getting an AI response. And this started happening to me within, I'm not exaggerating, the last couple weeks. And I'm looking at that AI summary results and I'm thinking, no, I don't want a summary of a Wikipedia page for this name. I'm looking for my friend who is within, I'm logged into Facebook, right? I'm just trying to search my friend. I want to send them a message. So information literacy is going to be so crucial. I'm a member of the sort of poultry community. I keep a rare breed of birds. And someone posted the other day that there was this ridiculously erroneous result in that exact AI summary at the top of a Google search. Ridiculously erroneous to the point that it was, someone had screenshotted it and posted it in a poultry breeders group because it was remarkable how wrong it was. And so to me, when you log into ChatGPT and you're engaged in that sort of dialogue that emerges, you already have your hat on around information literacy and thinking. You will find that result In fact, I would say you're more likely to take that result and then go Google things you learned from that result and go back to more primary sources when you're logged into ChatGPT as a user. But for me, the real question about information literacy is, are we able to see how insidious those tools are deployed in our normal facing of information that's coming to us? And will we be mindful about the level of information literacy that's needed in those circumstances when we're sort of passively consuming what the tools are generating for us? So major problem, I would say, problem set for all of us who consume media and interface with signs in the world.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm class of '05. I only recently started thinking about this, and it was because I work in healthcare, and someone posted on one of our boards that they had a student, and the student was really struggling with writing notes. So after you go to the doctor or therapist, they write an after visit summary, and kind of there's a process in it where they say what happened, they say what your response was to it, and then their assessment. So there's this kind of, synthesizing what happened, and you kind of review, and you're like, it's a second glance at what you've just experienced when you're face to face with someone. And the student, they're hard. It's a hard thing to learn. And then you create a plan at the end, right? So then moving forward, this is what we're doing. And it's tricky to teach and it's tricky to learn. And then all of a sudden, the students' summary plans were great. They were like, all of a sudden we can do it. And so their mentor ran it through, an AI detector. And sure enough, they're using ChatGPT to write patient notes. And what happened was this kind of really interesting debate about whether or not that's something we should be doing or encouraging a new generation of practitioners to do. And then I'm looking at other ways it's impacting healthcare. Like as a patient, my claims are being rejected by AI, and large hospital systems are increasingly using data to drive policy decisions, right? So if most people under 45 don't get breast cancer, we're not going to provide screenings for people under 45 because that's not cost effective, and if you have AI making those choices, like what does that start looking like? And these are the thoughts I'm having about AI in healthcare.
Thank you. Let's see. Is there someone on this side, like way over?
Here I come.
Maybe Roger down here. This is your exercise program, Eric.
Yeah. I need to move.
This is for Brooke. I had a question about academic honesty. I thought it was very interesting to cite to the source, and it's coming into my area of the law. And I'm wondering how much, as far as academic honesty, that when the person goes and checks the primary sources, and whether at that point they can then claim the work for their own, having checked and verified the primary sources.
Yeah, this is a really great and important question. I think as an individual writer and thinker, you have to commit to your style of citation, attribution. For me, the greatest amount of attribution and citation is where I want to be in my work. And that means that, if I am, if I, in a philosophical aesthetics context, if I'm introduced to someone's work or a theory that was developed in the 70s that has become, well utilized in certain circles, but I find that theory through a secondary source of a contemporary thinker, a contemporary practitioner, it's my thinking that in my work, it's appropriate for me to not just go read the original theory, but also to recognize, acknowledge, and provide attribution that the way I found my way to that theory was through a contemporary thinker who was doing secondary scholarship with that. And I wonder if that's the model that we need to deploy, right? So if you are engaging in a conversation with ChatGPT and ChatGPT is providing information and curation to you on a greater than carbon scale, because I really think that that's at the end of the day, David is mentioning, like the technology expedites, right? The reason that we have concerns about monitoring on the back of a police vehicle that can take a picture of 150 license plates at a stop sign and search for bench warrants, nothing new is happening there. It's just the speed at which the technology can do the thing that humans already do is the question. And should this result in, policy change and practice change? So if I'm encountering a new idea through ChatGPT, is it enough for me just to go find the primary source and cite that as though I found it on my own? Or should I have a practice of attribution and citation that shows that I found it through ChatGPT? I'm going to lean to the thick description each time for myself, and I'll encourage students to do the same, because I think otherwise where we risk a sort of malformation of information networking in the nodes, right? So ChatGPT is positioning itself as a network of nodes to connect people to things that in human scale they might not be connected to. And if you're using the tool, I think you should be acknowledging your use of the tool in your citation and attribution. So otherwise, is it plagiarism? I don't know if it meets the standard of the law. What do you think?
I think in law world that plagiarism is very common, and you use any source you can to track down original sources. And you also have the additional ethical problem of whether your advocacy is diluted by attributing it to AI instead of just fighting for your client and using those words that are most persuasive.
Yeah, you can.
To follow up a little on that, I'm Nate Bowles, class of 73. I'm a retired lawyer. Last month, I heard a presentation on the use of AI in the legal profession. A lot of it was warnings. The dean of the law school of Western Virginia University talked about lawyers in Colorado who had been suspended because they had filed briefs using AI, which had fictitious citations. In another case, a lawyer filed a brief in 2023, which cited a case from 2024. And that was caught. And in any event, so the presentation said in the legal profession, AI can be used to write a first draft, as you might assign an associate in a firm. But you wouldn't put it out there as a final product. It needs to be checked. It needs to be elaborated upon, needs to be refined according to the particular use that you're putting it in. Then last week, I got a notice from the state bar that they are adopting a proposed rule which makes it unethical not to disclose your use of AI in your filings there. So I have not read that rule yet. I will be doing that. I really won't have much say so on it because I don't actively practice. But that's indeed what's happening in a profession that has real consequences for people, not only the professional but the clients and the judges and the juries.
I think maybe we have time for maybe one more question, and I had designated Roger here, so.
A bunch of hands
Yeah, I know
went
we got a
up
bunch.
simultaneously.
But Roger had his hand up first, and I'm
Okay.
obligated.
Roger Huff, class of 69, also a retired lawyer. I was very interested in this attribution and citation, and you mentioned that there was the MLA had a format, and David's observation right at the beginning was if you did the search or asked the question at two different times, would you get a different result, which if the database is being updated, it's highly probable. So could you share with us what a citation looks like? What are all the elements of a citation that includes that? Like you see in sometimes just web searches, you could link to an article and you have to say the date that you accessed it. So there's got to be more elements, and it would be very informative if you could share that with us.
Yeah. So in writing instruction in general, we can direct quote, we can paraphrase, or we can provide an attribution, acknowledgement of something that is, the point, like a point to a source. In the text, in the body of the text, there's an inline attribution in modern language association. In almost every academic style, you put an inline citation at the end of that sentence that refers you to the works cited page, and then the works cited page would have the source, either a print source or a print source that was accessed digitally, and the date of the access for that digital source. And that is the case whether it is a printed source that has just been photocopied and was accessed by you digitally, or for an actual ChatGPT response. And so the source that ChatGPT will actually generate the citation for you there, and it will include the date of access and the query that you started with. So try it. Caselli had one last. Could we take one last?
We're out of time, actually. We want to stick to the schedule. So thank you, everyone, for coming. It's food for thought
you all.
and further conversation offline. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you.